It's student Dr. Spears here with drpremed.com, and I want to talk to you guys about something that's been in the news, which is probably shocking to a lot of people. It's the story about the super rich and wealthy making bribes to get their kids into elite colleges and universities. So what was happening was parents, they really want the best for their kids, and what's the notion that you hear all the time? Go to school, get good grades, get a great job, end the story, or maybe get married, have kids, and repeat the cycle all over again. But what I want to talk to specifically is about what's happening, and this is for undergrad education where parents were basically bribing people to get their kids in school. They were faking test scores like SAT, ACT scores. So here's what was happening. Some parents were paying $15,000 to have somebody take the SAT for their kids, or in some cases, they were paying about $10,000 to have somebody change their SAT scores or extend their time so they could have more time to take the exam. So they were trying to say that they had like a learning issue and they needed more time, basically unlimited time to take the exam, and it gets even worse. And so we know at colleges and universities, there's something called athletic scholarships where you can get into school based on your ability to play sports. And so some parents were actually bribing the coaches of the colleges to accept their kids on an athletic scholarship. Case in point was crew or rowing, where parents had daughters who never did any of those sports, but they found pictures online, photoshopped their daughter's head on it, and made fake videos and all of this stuff saying like they were like captain of this elite private crew team or whatever, and did that and then sent that off to the schools and tried to get their daughters in that way. And in some cases, I think they even paid one of the coaches at Yale University for soccer. I believe they paid the coach $400,000 to accept one of their kids to be on the soccer team, although the kid had no ability in soccer background on it, so they got a scholarship. And you're probably like wondering, why would somebody do that? And the thing is, you want to go to elite college. We understand that. There's some benefits from that. It's just a prestige. Like I tell people, I went to Northwestern University in Evanston, Illinois, and people kind of light up and look at you a little bit different because they recognize like, oh wow, that's a really top school, that's really good to get into, and so they see that. And so if you're doing like Yale, University, Southern California, Stanford, schools like that, people are going to kind of look at you a little bit different. And then also the connections you make at these universities where you're there, that's one of the big things. You're going to build connections and lifelong friendships, partnerships with your classmates in school. Like I know people who are venture capitalists, very high up in tech, lawyers, doctors, politics, even actually, and here's a crazy thing. You guys heard of Warren Buffett? Well, obviously he has kids and he has grandkids, and I went to college with his grandson, Howie Buffett, at Northwestern University. Didn't really interact with him or know him personally, but here's what would happen. Let's say down the future, Dr. Spears is doing something in the medical field or maybe in pharma or whatever, and I need to reach out to somebody maybe for some venture capital funding or some type of investment or something along those lines. You know how that's going to play out. I would probably send an email or ask somebody who knew the Buffetts personally and make the introduction because of that connection through Northwestern, or even reaching out myself using like, hey, we were in the same year or 1 or 2 years apart at Northwestern at the same time, and verify that with the EDU email address, and boom, you're in the door. So that's what they kind of mean by the connections that you can make. So that's what's happening with that. But you're probably thinking, okay, I'm pre-med. What does that mean for me? And the stakes are probably a lot higher for medical school admission, but you really don't see too much cheating in that regard because they're very strict about things. But money is a factor in everything. We can't hide it behind it. We can't say it doesn't exist. And if you look at the demographics, most of the people getting into medical school and becoming doctors actually are pretty well off because you have to think about it. After college, you're going to go to school for 4 more years of medical school. You're not going to be working. You're not going to be getting paid. And what's going to happen is you're going to either go in debt or you're going to have very wealthy parents who will write a check to the school for $60,000 to cover the tuition for the year. And that's just what a lot of the medical students do, or you're going to get loans if you don't come from a very wealthy background. And then you got to think after that you got to do residency for anywhere from 3 to 7 years depending on your specialty, and basically you're only going to get paid about $70,000 per year. So think about this. That's 4 and at the minimum 3, 7 years where you're hardly making any money. So how are you going to survive? How are you going to make things happen for yourself? So that's why a lot of people have very wealthy backgrounds going into medicine, because they have families and other support networks which can financially support them during medical school and residency, so they don't have to worry about things. And that's just what it is, because there's a lot of delayed gratification in medicine, because it's not like you go and then you're automatically going to get this high paying 6-figure job. And last I looked, once you're done with residency and you're attending physician, the average salary for a doctor across all specialties is $300,000 a year. So there's a big incentive, like, okay, for the rest of my life, at a minimum, I'm going to make $300,000 a year on average. You're really going to do what it takes to get into medical school. And that's why when you see some of these coaching programs and other things out there, it's really a drop in the bucket when you think about the return on investment. If let's say you even pay $15,000 to get into medical school, but you're going to get $300,000 for the rest of your life. Is that something that you would do? I think a lot of people would do that, and that's why you see wealthy people and wealthy students and families, they use admissions consultants to help them get into medical school, because there's just so much at stake. And as my Harvard TA would say from organic chemistry, no medical school, no surgery, no millions, all down the drain. That's kind of true when you think about it. If you don't get into medical school, that's what's going to happen, and you're going to have to think of plan B, and you're going to be a disappointment to your family and friends if you're going to ask, what are you doing? You're like, I'm not sure, and you're going to be hiding from people, especially at Thanksgiving and over the holidays, and the summer is going to be depressing when your friends are leaving for medical school. We're having a white coat ceremony, posting other pictures on Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat, maybe even tweeting if they do that still. I'm not sure, but that's what would be happening. And you would just be twiddling your thumbs or going to grad school, spending about $50,000 to go to grad school, or maybe you were retaking the MCAT all over again because you need to boost your score to get into medical school. You don't want that to happen. And so that's why a lot of people use admissions coaches like myself, because we've been through the process and we know what it takes, and I can help you avoid pitfalls or things that you just might have never even have considered or thought about on what it takes to get into medical school. Now, obviously, I'm not out there bribing anybody, throwing money at admissions officers, doing anything unethical, anything under the table. Nope, that's not how I work. But it's just that I have experience, and I was previously the president of the Pre-Med Society for 2 years. I was also treasurer. And so I know all the people who at the top medical schools. I know what medical schools are looking for. And I help applicants craft their application so they become the must-admit applicant. And it's crazy that I worked with students where their parents are physicians, or they have relatives like cousins, other siblings who are in medical school, and I work with them, and they're shocked by the things I tell them. They're like, nobody ever told me this. I never even thought about that. I'm like, yeah, because the people that you know who are in medicine, that's not what they do. They know what worked for them, and they probably don't even know exactly what actually it was that got them in medical school. So that's why you can't just rely on them. And I get a lot of times where students think they can rely on family members, and you know what? 6, 7, 8, 9 months down the road, I get that email, Jason, I didn't get into medical school and I need help. What should I do? Or, you know what? I didn't get into American medical school. So I decided I don't want to wait around. So I'm going to go to the Caribbean medical school or an international medical school because that's all I could get. You don't want to be in that position. You don't want to be in that boat because you just have too many obstacles against you and too many hurdles that you're going to have to get over to actually get a residency and a job in America if you want to practice medicine in the United States. And so you just want to make sure that you have all your ducks in a row when you're in this process of being pre-med and applying to medical school. And you do think, yeah, if you think it's crazy for what people do to get an undergrad, I can only imagine what the stakes are for medical school and professional school because there's so much on the line. I even knew one doctor at the hospital who was a cardiologist, and he was actually kind of disappointed in his daughter because she got into like an honors medical program, but she didn't get into like a Harvard for undergrad like her friends did. And so the dad, being a physician, he was a little bit disappointed. He was like, I couldn't tell her directly that you should have worked harder as a high school student to make sure you got into like a Harvard or Yale. But he's just disappointed in that. And your parents may not tell you that, but they might be disappointed in you if you don't get to the next level. And I know some parents are just proud of their kids to move forward, where there's others I know that's like, you need to do this. Why aren't you doing that? You need to work harder. You need to come home only with top grades, A's, 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 or B. What went wrong there? You don't want that to happen to you. So I just wanted to share a little bit about that. And do you guys have any thoughts about this whole process of bribing people to get into undergrad, college, and university? Because it's basically going to set the path for the rest of your life. And even think about it, even if you, I'm just having a thought right now, even about getting into these undergrads, that's going to kind of help you also get into professional school, whether you're trying to go to business school, law school, dental school, or medical school. People look at where you went because that's kind of like an indicator in society. It's America, it's a capitalist society, and we're competitive about a lot of things, even where you went to undergrad. So keep that in mind. I don't want you guys to cheat or anything like that. You got to do what's within the systems with merit. You can get places, get scholarships, all of that, but you don't want to cheat because you know what I heard's happening to a lot of those students who cheated or bribed their way into college or university. If the student knew about what their parents were doing, the school said that they're going to expel those students. That is going to be extremely hard to overcome. You're probably not getting into medical school if you have an expulsion because you don't have a degree, so that's not going to work out. You may be lucky if you can find an international school that will accept you for that, so just keep that in mind. And then for the students who allegedly did not know what their parents were doing, for them, things will be a little bit different. They are going to have, the schools are going to look at that on a case-by-case basis and see what they're going to do for those students. But again, you don't want that stigma over your head. And I want you guys to know that overall, like, this is like a breaking scandal, but it's not shocking when you really think about it because a lot of the places, money talks, money talks, money really talks, and if people aren't outrightly bribing and cheating their way into school, they're writing checks. Let's say Susie parents writes a $200,000 check to the school, and then Susie's applying to that school. You think the admissions is going to say, oh, we're not going to accept Susie? Most likely they are. Or somebody wants to name a building in somebody's name at a school. you know their family's going to get in when they apply. That's just how it works. And we even see it with politics where, because I'm a political science major from undergrad, we see that happening too, where billionaires have access to the president, and no matter what president it is. So you think about it. Can you, let's just say an average ordinary citizen, reach the White House and talk to the president? Yes or no? Probably not. No. Now let's say you're a CEO and you want to get in touch with the president. Most likely you can. And here's how that kind of plays out. Someone told me this, and I'm like, oh wow, that makes complete sense. You can't bribe the president, but let's think about this. What do most presidents do after they leave office? They go and speak to companies. So let's say you're Tim Apple. You want the president to do something for you. He might not do it right then and there, or actually he probably would, because once he leaves office, he's going to go to Silicon Valley, give a speech, and get paid like $400,000 for one speech. And now you wonder why Tim Apple has some pull in the White House, because doesn't want to get on that corporation's bad side when he leaves office, because that's going to be a paycheck, a speaking fee that they're not going to get. So I'm getting a little bit in depth, kind of going a little bit above and beyond, but I just wanted to share that with you. And if you're pre-med, you really need to make sure you're doing everything possible to get into medical school, because it's not easy, it's tough, extremely competitive, and if you're not doing something, somebody else is, because it's called getting a competitive advantage. And so if I knew at the end of the day I was going to get $300,000 per year because I got into medical school, you best believe I would have no problem paying a consultant $15,000 to help me with my application, help me with my extracurricular activities, help me with my secondaries, coach me on medical school interview prep, and helping me write my medical school personal statement, just so that I have a fighting chance, and also get some tutoring for the MCAT, and just doing everything possible so that when I apply to medical school, it's not that I wrote a check for $200,000 to the school. It's just that I did everything that the medical school wants out of the students that they accept, and that's why I got into medical school. And a person who thought, oh, I'll just figure it out on my own, or I'll just go to Student Network or Reddit and figure it out, they're the ones who don't get in. And it's just the way that the cookie crumbled, if you want to use that analogy. Well, not analogy, but comparison of what happened. So this is Jason with drpremed.com, just sharing a little bit insight about this college scandal and the implications for students, families, even those who were involved, and definitely those who weren't involved, because you got to think, if somebody writes a check, they're getting into college or university, and somebody else isn't. And so the same thing applies if you apply to medical school. Somebody who's getting help to improve their application and their candidacy, they're going to get into medical school, and someone else isn't. And you have to remember, 60% of first-time applicants to medical school get rejected. And you got to ask yourself, okay, if I have a better chance of flipping a coin and calling heads or tails correctly than getting into medical school, maybe I want to do things a little bit different than what everybody else is doing, and perhaps I want to seek help from somebody who's already been there, done that, and has a solid track record of helping others get there as well. It's not like, oh, well, this worked for me, so it should generally work for you as well. Nope, you want an expert, somebody who does this day in and day out and has your best interests at heart, and will go to bat for you to ensure that you have an application that becomes a no-brainer for admissions committee officers to say, yes, let's submit this applicant. And if you have questions, you have concerns, always visit drpremed.com. Take care.